Hello and welcome. And let me go to the meat cam actually real quick. You're going to notice I'm by myself today, but welcome into another episode of Offensively Accurate. Couple of things going on. New desk, new setup, a bunch of new things going on. I'm trying to professionalize this. Want to get a new camera here soon as well. Get some of that fancy focus work, where you all the popular YouTubers kind of use it, and get more situated, get more professional. Unfortunately, Donnie will not be joining me today. Johnny, forgive me, Donnie, not Johnny. Donnie will be out possibly for the next couple of weeks dealing with some personal stuff. I was recently in contact with him. I wasn't sure if he was going to make it for today or not, but he was not able to. So hopefully on a lot of those notices I put out, I did not have with Donnie. Hopefully I didn't get anybody too excited. So hopefully if there's any issues on my end, whether it's sound, anything along those lines, please hit it in the chat so I can see it, so I understand what's going on. But from what I can tell, everything on my end looks good. I got to change where I'm looking at. Normally I was going the up and down route, right? My screens were on top of each other. Now I got to do the left and the right. So it'll be a little bit different, but hopefully I won't make any mistakes. So to start for today, I apologize for missing last week. And some of the stories that I missed last week would have been Kristi Noem essentially like nuking her political career. That whole story about the dog was incredible, and there's a bit more to it too. I bet you haven't seen that yet, and possibly you have. I also talked about a fake New York Post article. The New York Post article, which I guess if you follow me on other platforms, I don't think I really put anything on YouTube. There was a New York Post article going around saying that they were going to, Congress is set to vote on a bill that would criminalize questioning the 9/11 narrative. Now, I ended up putting a retraction video out because the account I saw it from was 1984, turned out to be entirely fake. I felt like an idiot for seeing, posting about fake news, or falling for a screenshot, I should say. So I got to verify things a bit better. But in my retraction video, the point that I'd made was the sentiment is still very well and alive behind why they would want to criminalize the 9/11 narrative. And literally at the drop of a hat, I mean, literally a day or 2 days later, they dropped that Anti-Semitism Bill in which the House votes 320 representatives out of the 410 that are in there, vote almost overwhelmingly for it, with only about 20 Republicans not, and only about 70 Democrats not, in what may be one of the biggest attacks on free speech we've seen ever. And of course, for all the groypers out there and all the people who have been talking about the JQ, which I have been turning my head towards here a lot more here recently, because, people point out the very basics of the BLM riots. Now you pair it with the Columbia riots that are happening right now, 4 years later, Summer of Love, we're watching, history rhyme, not repeat per se. And we went through the Summer of Love and watched these protests rage on for however long. I mean, there's all this insane numbers that the insurance companies put out, the billions of dollars of damages that were done. And then you stretch it to now, and almost within a couple of days, they're shutting it down entirely. And they're shutting it down entirely in the name of anti-Semitism. Under no other umbrella are they doing so. And so, of course, that draws the general framing of like, okay, people see that they did this, and then, oh, now they're stopping it for this reason? Alongside everything else going along with October 7th and the Hamas issues, I think, quite honestly, at this point, it's very disingenuous for somebody to say, hey, the JQ is too far and outside the realms of context. And then what do you know? Nick Fuentes gets reinstated back on X. So to go back to what I missed from the previous weekend, there was also, if you can find this, if you're interested, there was a breeding compound in Mexico. A whistleblower was on that story. That was about a week ago. I think it fell out of circulation in the news stories. I didn't follow up with it, so I didn't attach it to this week's. But just to let you know, there was a whistleblower who, and again, the specific reasoning for what this breeding compound was to breed him for his genetic material. Now, he had claimed it was because he was like 99% Ashkenazi, or whatever you say, Jew. And that was the reasoning. But again, I didn't look too much into it. Just a heads up, if you do see that story floating around, definitely look into it because it's terrifying. And it was loosely linked to a very famous Seattle philanthropist who apparently is a female who has a bunch of money, who was supposedly the head of this operation. Again, look into it. Could be fake news. I wasn't too sure about it. But I do have a positive announcement. Let me actually pull this up. I'll pull it over onto my screen here so you can see it. This is just a screenshot from my phone from my TikTok account. Um, I just got to 1,019 followers. So I broke the 1,000 followers. So one of the platforms I'm finally like actually growing on, right? Like I'm finally getting making some momentum. It sucks because I've noticed, on YouTube, even X as well, and essentially any other platform I've been on, I've been choked, stranglehold, and so finally I have something popular or something. I mean, not popular, but something growing finally. One of the and I'm just doing very very basic, simple videos where I'll take one of the news stories again. One of the ones we'll talk about here later on, which is a $11 billion high speed rail that California built, and it's worthless. But just simple stories like that I've been talking about, things that are like not as extreme as some of the other takings have been. That way I can kind of at least kind of protect myself and then give more of my full throated opinions here on YouTube and the other platforms. That way I don't put myself in a position of getting nuked on something that I'm finally getting to grow. Especially too because um I barely use TikTok. The only time I even began to use it was doing the street interviews in those early portions, and that's when I got one that hit like 170,000. But then my account got throttled after that. Like I kept trying to use it, and it was like you can't post, copyright, copyright, copyright. It was taking the music off. It would put the music back on. It took the audio off, the audio back on, and eventually it looks like they just finally like left my account alone. To one of the recent videos I had even put back on TikTok, I had to then appeal on that one alone over something that I was sourcing directly with a green screen behind me. It was like, dude, you can't say I'm doing misinformation. I'm like reading off of these articles. I won that appeal, thankfully, because again, this isn't the first appeal. I've had appeal multiple times. I won an appeal against SNL a while ago for free and fair use over a reaction video on YouTube, which I didn't think I was going to win that, and I got copyrighted almost immediately. But positive news for me. So if you want to know where I'm going to be doing, I just unlocked the ability to go live as well on TikTok. I'm not really sure how that works, nor do I feel comfortable with it. But if TikTok's going to allow me to grow and not censor me, I'm going to use the platform. So if you don't follow me there, at least, come over there and follow me too. I'll be a bit more personable. A lot of the times too, I'm shooting these videos right when I wake up in the morning. But to get this off the screen, go back to where we were. If I can, man. Well, to go back off of this, I was going to swing it over to Donnie at this point and let him introduce himself, but luckily he's alive and he's not here, because we never met before. And then when I'm trying to talk to somebody who lives out of state, I want to make sure they're doing okay, but and he is, just for that update. I'm still uploading everything to X and Spotify, so when these videos do come out, expect them to be clipped in different portions and then uploaded to X and Spotify. And so I did do a Spaces to make up for the missed week. I'm assuming 9:30 a.m. is not a good time for people. If people do have times that they would recommend or would feel comfortable doing a Spaces event with me, where I can hear opinions from other people who want to speak to me about some topic, on Spaces we'll try to keep things very singular. So shoot me times. I did one at 9:30 for about an hour or so, and I didn't receive any engagement, unfortunately. So I swiftly wrapped it up after I finished about the first hour portion. So if anybody has better times, I'd imagine probably the evening would work better. I'm kind of a unique person where my schedule is not so tiered or attached to a 9 to 5. So honestly, let's go ahead and get this started, man. Nick Fuentes is back. And with that news, obviously massive, right? Huge win for free speech. Huge win for X, in my opinion, to be honest with you. If we just swing it over, man, we can just go right to one of Nick Fuentes' page. I have my post notifications turned on for him. One of the first things I will say here, let me go ahead and actually make this a bit bigger. It's easier to see. It's right here. Okay. So he's back on X, and almost instantly he passed a bunch of people who, influencers in the same space with followers account. And I'm not even joking you, my entire X feed, as it turned into as I began scrolling, was Groyper post this, Groyper post that, Groyper this, Groyper, and I was like, I'm assuming that based on who I engage with, that who I like on post, and because I've been on this recent bend where I'm essentially being very, very vocally anti-Israel and a lot of the influence that's being put out, I must be a groiper because I don't follow any of these groiper accounts, right? The only one I guess I would follow is Nick Fuentes. And it's just funny because is it by the nature of me just following him that it's thrown me in this group, or is it because I've liked other people's posts? I don't know. Maybe that speaks to the fact of maybe why I feel so boxed in on X and why it feels like my impressions can never reach out unless I'm talking about something very, very basic, almost like engagement farming, which I hate doing that because I'm like, I'm not a disingenuous person. So I'm like, very rarely do I want to post something I've seen 40 million times and then be like, thoughts? But I mean, I get it, right? It's the game, right? And then if I'm somebody who's struggling to even grow a bit, right? It's probably in my best interest to do things on that nature. I'll try to think of things to do in that same light that's not nearly as engagement farming, I should say. But it's cool because he has a great header profile, right? So it's Kanye West and you got Alex Jones and then Nick Fuentes. And he's not even tweeted that much. But what they did do, I do want to point your attention to, is they had a big Spaces event. I'm close to finishing this Spaces, almost 4 hours long. I did listen to the majority of it up until the final hour and a half, and then they had a reflection space afterwards. So I have about 4 more hours of audio worth to listen to still. And it's crazy because even Mariano Fall does it to him, where he's like, I don't agree with most of what Nick Fuentes says, but everybody deserves a voice. Join me tomorrow for Nick Fuentes' first live show on X since being reinstated. And it's funny because Nick points this out almost immediately in these spaces too, where, you can have Hassan, I think that's how you say his name, say like, we deserve 9/11. But when he says that, nobody calls for him to be censored off the face of the earth. People just go, oh, okay. Like, it's outrageous, but all right. And that's like the left-wing outrageous thing to say. And then you have somebody like Fuentes who then says like the outrageous thing on the right to say, which is like, he'll make a point to be like, we should go back to burning women. And he does it even in jest, where Hassan didn't do it in jest. Hassan literally meant that. And then Fuentes will do it in jest, but he'll push it. He's like a provocateur, right? He's antagonistic. He kind of pushes the boundaries, which like if you believe in absolute free speech, there should be no boundary to push upon. But regardless, it's funny because he goes right into it and he talks about how these people on the right who have been banned, the Alex Joneses, the Fuenteses, the Andrew Tates, they're always given a preamble in their description when spoken about. And it's hilarious because you'll see an article and it before it tells you anything about what Nick Fuentes did, before it tells you anything about what Andrew Tate did, before it tells you anything about what Alex Jones did, it'll literally be like, Alex Jones, most well known for Sandy Hook hoax and saying these things about these children, went on to talk about this financial crisis. And it's like, they have to ensure that the smear, like the preamble is there. Like it has to be this ridiculous smear. And so it automatically frames things all the time. Now, most of you are familiar with this when it comes to people getting censoring on the right. But I think Nick's broader point here is that it doesn't happen at all to people on the left. And it's crazy because, when he said it like that, it's hard for me to think of like outrageous takes that have done. Now, there have been a few, right? There have been a few where it's been kind of called out. I mean, you can think of, and I can't remember her name now, but when she held up the decapitated Trump head. But when the right covers these things, they don't cover them in the same way where every single time they talk about this individual, they go like, I mean, I'm sure there's certain publications do, but this is more of the exception than the general rule. The right typically says, Kathy, whatever, I think that's her name. Kathy says that now this, or to be like, now this. It's not ever, here's Kathy, the woman who once held a decapitated Trump head and also did these things and voted for these people. Here's what she said about a pet dog. And it's entirely not even close to being related, but it's just like the smear is there to ensure that the reader is given the pretext that this is a bad person. What they say is bad. Take it with bad. And it's just like, it's gross, but it happens all the time. And I think we've just gotten too comfortable with it happening from one side and not the other. And so it's become ultimately too easy for people to point out at the right wing extreme takes and be like, oh no, that doesn't belong here. But all the left wing extreme takes now exist as the mainstream. The best way I can even say it is like, imagine two top fighters, but only one side's allowed to even jump down off the building. Only one side's allowed to even do suplexes. Only one side's allowed to do this. And then when they finally do it, everyone's like, oh, they're breaking the rules. But like no one cares that the other one's doing it the entire time because like that's the framing that they were given or originate with. And so it becomes like base level and they accept it. And then it just kind of escapes the brain. But to move off of just basic Nick Fuentes coming back, there's quite a bit that's been going on, and so he's been retweeting and posting quite a bit. One that I did want to put a bit of attention to because Elijah Schaefer recently went on a podcast with Tim Pool. I believe it was this past Friday, and I'll be fair to Tim, it was the most civil I'd heard him last, and the longest I'd heard him last over a discussion when it came, specifically about Israel. And what's hilarious is this discussion ended up getting so tangled and it became so zoned in and focused that it was one of the first shows I've ever listened to of Tim's where he didn't read any super chats because the whole thing ran. I mean, once they picked up and got into the debate, it ran like the rest of the show. And I thought it was cool too because they had people on there like the two Pop Culture Crisis hosts. They had Brett Dasovic and Mary Morgan, I believe was her name. And the best part is barely either of them talk the entire time until things kind of cool down and they kind of move away from the Israel subject because both of them know, subtly that Elijah has a bias and Tim clearly has a bias, and those biases opposed, obviously, with Tim seemingly being a bit more pro-Israel, maybe not in the pro sense of it, but he's at least not going to attack them for the same things that Elijah's going to attack them. In fact, he kind of puts on this kind of bogus, like he's ignoring everything and then gets mad why people aren't concerned about other things, ignoring the points that the people who are against Israel bring up. It's kind of this weird thing where if you watch it for long enough, you can see how disingenuous and inconsistent he is throughout his positions. And I will say he's not as bad as a lot of other like pro-Zionist people will be when it comes to the issue. He's someone though who by proxy of liking him for a lot of his other objective takes, had my eyes open very, very peculiarly to the way he handled this subject in a similar manner to other subjects I disagreed with him upon. And so to go to the tweet that's actually on screen here, I'm going to scroll up so you can see it. I'm going to move myself out of the way actually. Put myself just over here. So regardless, it goes from Jake Shields, right? Jake Shields is a former UFC fighter, but or an MMA trainer right now, I believe. I don't think he's in it right now. Forgive me, I'm not too all caught up and read up with MMA stuff. But some of the cool things with this is he goes right at the heart of Tim Pool. And if you don't know, Jake Shields is a very, very huge account when it comes to the Israel Hamas kind of context and conversations. I'm not really sure what turned him over to it, but he's been one of the most vocal people on the platform for it, and he gets a lot of hate for it. But this tweet's very simple, right? It's an attack on Tim Pool because he makes himself so attackable with a lot of the weird things that he does. And so it reads, Tim Pool is such a joke of a man with no principles. Last month he told me he would let him and Nick Fuentes on to debate Israel. He just worded that really badly. Later he called and said he didn't feel equipped to debate and needed to find multiple Zionists for the panel. I don't know if he worded it like that. I would imagine Tim was like, okay, I have 4 people who are anti-Israel, and I have nobody who's pro. So like, where do I go from here? And then he ends up saying, I called him back last week to see when he wanted to do it, and he ignored my calls. Eventually, he had his employee tell me that he changed his mind, which I'm assuming is Elizabeth, who is his coordinator now that Sour Patch Lids isn't there anymore. Personally, I believe a man should always keep his word. And if he doesn't, at least have the balls to talk to who you lied to. These are our brave right-wing influencers. And then I'm sure Tim will have some kind of take where he'll say nobody's owed a response to him, yada, yada, yada. Which is fair too, because I think that's even what Jake Shields follows this up with. Hold on, I'll get to that comment here in a second. From Jake, it says, and it's his show and he can do as he likes. I just don't like liars or people too cowardly to tell you they changed their mind. And you get the classic old, this guy ripping his beanie off. I will say I don't appreciate the salt. I know I get people who find it funny. I cannot stand I can't cheer on random assault. Like I would if somebody just took my hat off in public, dude, I'd punch you in the mouth. With no joke. I don't even care if you're a woman. Like I would literally I would almost certainly get close to ending your life if you pulled my hat off in public. So that's something I'm like, it's whatever. People make it on because he's bald, like haha, but like yanking some clothes off somebody ain't cool. Regardless though, let me read this comment here, maybe blow it up here. Say, Tim doesn't seem to have any real stance on anything, and then he gets mad when people bring up valid concerns. It's odd as a host. Yeah, I think honestly, one could honestly counter-argue his Israeli derangement syndrome take with the fact that he has it. If the one thing that you're going to always constantly go to is saying that someone has Israeli derangement syndrome every time it gets brought up, well then what is your real opposition besides saying this person talks about this issue too much? I just don't understand. I mean, you could view that as like, Tim has politics derangement syndrome. Like he ignores all of these things in culture and he just only focuses on politics. You could do that 110 different ways from Sunday. I think it's one of those things where it's very easily see-throughable. It's where he's kind of putting that front out because he just doesn't want, he wants to avoid the conversation. I think that's honestly more accurate. And maybe not even avoid the conversation entirely, but at least distance himself from being put in a position to say things he doesn't want to say. Another comment saying, I think with the gain fame he has, been more scared to take a hard stance. Um, I don't think he's anything recently has made him scared to take a hard stance. He's somebody who has over time and time again shown that he refuses to take a hard stance. Most particularly with the voting, he refused because he wanted to protect his show on YouTube. So as for whatever reason, he refused to say that there was any voting abnormalities for the longest time, even amidst Stephen Crowder reporting from empty parking lots with different illegal ballot harvesting techniques, along with the issues that Pennsylvania did with their that was unconstitutional, that they did not renege when they had pushed through the absentee ballot and different things of that nature. I mean, one of the biggest things that kind of turned me away from Tim Pool, if anybody remembers this, I don't think you can even find this episode on YouTube because he took it down himself. Was an episode with Jesse Kelly. I believe it was him, Jesse Kelly, Phil. Can't think of anybody else who was on, where he takes his show down off of YouTube in the middle of the show because Jesse Kelly was getting a bit too spicy with what we should do with the illegals coming across the border. It's not YouTube taking his show down, it's him doing it himself because he values the money his show makes more than he values what he could do operatively. And he says this often, he says like, is it better to have someone like, on the front lines who's like at least doing half of something? Or is it better that I take my whole audience just to say one thing one final time before I get nuked? I do understand his argument, but it's kind of pointless when you do have multiple other platforms who are willing to bring you over, especially when, you're someone as big as Tim Pool. I don't think you would need to value the discoverability on YouTube as much when you have millions of followers and subscribers. I don't think it's going to be hard to be discovered on these platforms, especially if you go to Rumble. I mean, you'd be one of like 20 creators who are like large mainstream creators who have made the push over there. Plus, he runs his own website too. So for me, a lot of it's just like, dude, for me who has much less to lose, I can find it a lot easier to be like, bro, just do it. But again, I can't put myself in the mindset where I value losing millions of dollars over losing the ability to want to speak truth for myself or others. And that's one of the biggest things, dude, is I refuse to abandon people, no matter how convenient it may be. And, maybe that's just part of the Christian upbringing in me. What there was, though, there was some hilarious photos that came out about this. So I'm actually going to go ahead and see if I can drag one of these over. Let me pull this over here real quick. This is a black Elijah Schaefer said like Black Power or something like that. He was like BLM, fight the power. And so he's just taking like these super nerdy photo. And I thought it was hilarious. And even to the point of man, I can't get this to stay even on here. But there's some few other photos that he had. One was like Tim standing on his tiptoes because people just like attacking him. And like I don't like piling in. I understand the aspect, right? But it's like, I don't really think that moves the needle a lot. And I understand mocking people is one of the easiest ways to remove them from the throne of power in which they sit. So, fair game, honestly. Like, and if I was to make fun of Tim Pool for something, it would be this photo. It wouldn't be the other ones. It would be the fact that he went to Florida and Mar-a-Lago and he refused to take his beanie off. Just super, super weird. And like, don't get me wrong, dude. Like, I'm somebody who also suffers from, what would you call that? Having poor vision. I think my camera might have busted on me. Hopefully we can get that back. Of course, I always got some kind of issue going on. Well, let me try to take it offline here real quick. But regardless, that's the funny thing that would make me laugh about Tim Pool. Let me see if I get my camera to come back online. If not, I might be busted. I'm not sure what happened actually. Just it flashed at me. I noticed it out of the corner of my eye. But you know me, of course. There's always going to be some issues that have to happen. There we go. Is that good now? Okay. I'll just deactivate it and reactivate it. Fine. But this is the photo I'd make fun of him, right? It's just weird. I think at a certain point, it's like, bro, you're gonna have to accept that you're getting older. You need somebody who even says that all the time too. He's like, it's like, life's part of an experience, and you're getting older. And it's just somebody who refuses to accept that they just don't have like as much hair. Like, don't like, look at me, dude. Like, I'm not doing the best either. But it's nothing to be afraid of. I'm not gonna just sit there and like wear a beanie the rest of my life because I'm terrified of what some random person may think of my opinion. Especially when you are making as much money as what this kid is. It's like, dude, are you serious? Like, you're scared what they're gonna say about your beanie, dude? Like, just you have a bunch of money, you have like the what do they call it? You have like the FU money. Now, though, to bring it to a clip that was from this segment, from Elijah Schaffer, I thought he handled himself really, really well. But here's just to give an idea of where a lot of these commentators and influencers sit with their opinions. Now, I'll read what Elijah said, but it's only a minute and a half little clip here, and I do have a lot of clips to go through, especially because I am going to be solo, so I'm going to burn through as much of this topical news as I possibly can. So let's start here. Elijah's saying the amount of power AIPAC has in the United States should alarm you. The fact the minority group can pull the strings of our elected government means our politicians are puppets, which I think nobody's going to disagree with that. The fact, oh no, I've already read that. But it's not just lobby groups. Private institutions across the country are more loyal to fighting anti-Semitism than protecting our Constitution. This is enemy-like behavior and needs to be taken seriously. Our God-given rights are on the line. The fact that they try to smear you when you point it out should be your first clue you're on the right path. It's not hateful to love America. So, let's go ahead and watch this. Let me make this full screen here. Hopefully the sound is okay. I'm going to scroll up, make sure it's all right on my end.
I care about Israel as much as I care about Myanmar, as much as I care about the Uyghur Muslims or Sudan and all that.
You should care more because they control the United States government heavily. They're not the only group, but AIPAC has such a heavy influence that they even claim that they can just whip votes in Congress. And we've seen with TikTok, like, you should be more concerned with Israel, not because you need to care about Jews. I know you make a distinction between getting rid of Jewish power, as said by people that would be like Groypers or maybe Nick Fuentes, in more of this institutional power that they see, versus not caring about Israel. However, you don't have to care about any of these other takes that are more controversial to realize that the government of Israel, or at least special interests connected to the government of Israel, have so much, if not the most influence of any private held lobby group in the entire country. That should alarm you because, look, Facebook is committing election crimes, as we saw in the last election. Not only that, they're stealing and selling our data in the same way TikTok is. They're censoring our free speech, and yet we're attacking TikTok. Why? Because, well, Mark Zuckerberg is Jewish, and they already censor anti-Semitic information and language. And so when you see with TikTok, I'm talking, Facebook already censors this kind of stuff.
What does Mark Zuckerberg being Jewish have to do with TikTok?
He would care about that. He does care about that. He would care about stopping anti-Semitism. He cared about intervening in the election. I think if you're Jewish, why would you not care about anti-Semitism? Why would that not bother you?
Like, wait, so
if I was white and I own a platform, I probably wouldn't tolerate like
TikTok,
anti-white.
Right. And that's kind of, the argument he's making is very, very simple. But you'll notice, instead of listening to literally anything or attacking or, going at anything that was said there, and I can, from this portion onwards, because I listen to this podcast, you can even hear it. Tim Pool's like, what is being Jewish? Elijah told you all of that, which you have to know. Like, Tim already knows the majority of all of this. He chooses to ignore that portion and then attack the fact that Elijah brought up that Mark Zuckerberg was Jewish. I mean, not attack, but I guess hone in, and it's kind of deflective, right? It's not, again, we're not full throat attacking the matter at hand. We're doing this chick slapping kind of ordeal of like, politically correct, and it's like, dude, have you not sat here, Tim Pool, and been like, free speech this, free speech that, free speech this, and then people come on your show and you tone police? It's just like, I don't get it. I really truly don't understand. I wish that I did. But there's nobody who's championing free speech anymore. There are a few, but I mean, I'm talking in the macro between the large left and the large right. Like, no, dude, not when you're passing anti-Semitism bills that are largely being, propped by the right. The fact that you had more Democrats voting against, for free speech in the anti-Semitism bill than you did Republicans is a big indicator of like exactly what was said in this by Elijah Schaffer. Not only just the protest, but the basic, being 2% of like, the instance in South Dakota. Why is this even a thing that was being passed? And then your constituents are like, are your constituents asking for it? If I go down in Texas, because Greg Abbott's doing the same thing, do you think the average person there like is even in their top 5 of like issues that they can think about that affect them is people being Jewish, being called bad names? Is like, no, it's ridiculous. And to think that like there is an honest or a good faith push towards this is just insane, dude. Like, what are you talking about? We've spent the last how many years, decade, even more than that. I mean, it's definitely been more than that, of dealing with anti-white hatred. I mean, ignoring the fact that a lot of the people who are victimized when it comes to racial hate crimes are white people. How many videos you have to see of people of color, any other color besides white, ganging up on white people? Not a word, not a mention from mainstream media. But my gosh, dude, you have one white person say a bad thing to a black person, it becomes 9/11 all over again. And to make that point more clear, dude, forgive me, we have the kid making monkey noises at the protests becoming literally exactly what I just said, another racist 9/11. And we'll get to that here in a second. So there was a couple other things I wanted to point out with this, which I guess I already did point out the space. You should go and listen to that space. But there were 2 main arguments that happened with this, right? It was between Israel and its influence, the existence and significance of that. But there was also a secondary argument because they moved the conversation towards Nick Fuentes, towards the back half of this podcast. And this is where the funny portion of Mary Morgan saying, I got to side with Elijah on this one, which I thought was super ballsy of her, but she's really based anyways. And so I was kind of expecting that from her. And of course, she's a very, very devout Christian. So she's kind of got her ears, primed for these kind of religious, the eschatology kind of arguments, the morality arguments. And what I was very impressed with was, when they moved the conversation to arguing about Nick Fuentes and his audience, they got Tim Pool into a corner. I mean, him and Mary Morgan essentially got Tim Pool into a corner where Tim's making this argument essentially that anybody who's a fan of Nick Fuentes is the reason why Nick Fuentes can't have success. Making this piss poor kind of argument that he's like, well, why is it anytime, his audience is this, his audience is a liability, they say these mean things, they cause a security risk. And to put that on Nick is just kind of incredible for somebody who's as big as a figure as he is, especially when he's, what's the word? He's as popular as he is. He's as mainstream as he is. And then you have, people like Candace Owens, who got millions of followers. You have people like Charlie Kirk, who has a bunch of followers. And now let's honestly turn it towards Tim. I don't blame people. Like, if I say I'm a fan of, Eminem, but then I go and I go and do something random. I mean, they did do this back in the day. And then I go do something violent. Well, then the investigators are like, oh man, dude, he was listening to Marshall Mathers about, 3 hours before he went and did that violent thing. It's all Eminem's fault. What? That's just the most dumb. It's so singular. It's clearly meant, it's an argument meant for somebody who has very, very little IQ. And the same thing has even happened to Tim Pool, but he makes the argument against Nick Fuentes that he would defend himself. For an example, if you remember, there was a couple instances where these, I can't remember if this guy actually murdered somebody or if he simply shot at people. Regardless, there was an instance where somebody did something violent and then they went on and said, the news media smeared Tim Pool over it because they were like, oh, look, we found out that this guy actually listens to Tim Pool and his last 3 things that he'd listened to was 3 clips of Tim Pool, and Tim Pool's the reason why this guy went out and did it. But then Tim straight up argues and goes, no, he didn't. That's not at all. That's not me. He's like, you can't blame me just because somebody listens to what I say and then say that that they were a fan of mine. He's like, and then Tim makes the argument, oh, they're not a fan of mine. I'm like, far be it for you, bro, to be to tell you who's a fan of yours and who's not. That's ridiculous. Also, it looks like if somebody just commented in there, your comment was hidden. Because of course you're gonna get censored and shadow banned. I did see it pop up for a second. I can't see it now. And it's crazy because even there's simple words. I imagine Elijah Schaefer is one of those words. So if you did have a comment about Elijah Schaefer, put an asterisk in between his name. It should get the comment to pop up. Drop a letter if you have to. Censorship is crazy when it comes to these figures who are on the right-hand side. I've had happened to myself. And so enough to move on from there. Let's move on from the Elijah Schaffer angle. But again, I will say, if you have not listened to this aspect or this portion of the podcast, you should definitely go and listen to this. But then move to the next story here, which is still in the same wheelhouse. It's this ridiculous anti-Semitism bill. No. And of course, you got Jeff Younger posting another crazy video going on. Let's get this over here and put it on screen. So this is HR 6090. This was the bill that was, okay, there we go. I see it now. Tim can't connect with his audience like Elijah and Candace and Charlie can. Well, that's true. Tim's famous even for saying things like, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out, because he called anybody who had disagreed with his stance with the Eliza Blue issue and the way they handled the reporting with that story. He said, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. He said, actually, a matter of fact, if you disagree with me, he's like, you're either a bot or you're in bad faith, making the argument that no matter what he did, he's 100% right. He's very, very easy to make fun of too, because he does do a lot of very childish things. He is very, very approximate to a man child. That's not to say though that you shouldn't listen to him. He does have a lot of good points there, but a lot of his personal effects and character, I can't condone. HR 6090 though is the most ridiculous piece of legislation I've seen, probably in I don't know if I could say the most ridiculous, but the most recent ridiculous piece of legislation I think I could say I've seen in a long time. And this is to provide for the consideration of a definition of anti-Semitism set forth by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, and which is also short for IHRA, or I think it's IHRA, for the enforcement of federal anti-discrimination laws concerning education programs or activities and for other purposes. So the reason I believe that's highlighted at the top there was because the way this would have been taken place would be instituted through the Department of Education as well, meaning that the curriculum would have to reflect all of these things too. That means all like the gay posters they put up in the school board and the cafeteria would all have to kind of reflect these things too. So that's the way that it was going to be inserted, as far as I understand. So not only does it have multiple definitions, okay, so it has two. You're going to see this here, right? So the definition of anti-Semitism is two things. The first being that it is the adopted definition that the IHRA had put forward. So a biased group, a group that's biased towards Semites, put forward their own definition of anti-Semitism. So not only is that being recognized, it's being, here in the legislation, it's also being adopted. So keep that in mind. And two, it includes the contemporary examples of anti-Semitism identified in the IHRA definition. Now, what this means is the contemporary examples of anti-Semitism is their basic way of kind of being allowed to keep the door open to add other things as they become contemporary that would also fall under the definition of anti-Semitism. So they're essentially saying, we have one, there's an actual definition, and then we are also leaving room for a definition that we will leave up to IHRA to decide if it is anti-Semitism. So it's got a stagnant portion and a fluid portion, which again isn't set in stone by any means. It is simply allows a biased group to determine whether or not what was deemed as anti-Semitic was officially anti-Semitic or not, which is bogus. So they provide from the IHRA, this is also the working definition of anti-Semitism. Contemporary examples of anti-Semitism in public life, media, schools, blah, 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 taking into account the overall context, include but are not limited to. And that's the portion what they're linking to, which they're adopting this, which in turn would allow the IHRA on their end to just literally add whatever they wanted to as the examples would provoke themselves, right? So say something happens in the mainstream, they deem it as anti-Semitic, they add it to their definition, it becomes law. It's like a fluid thing. They can just add it and now it becomes illegal. It's insane. Honestly, it's quite literally insane. I don't understand how this gets passed. But this is where it gets anti-Christian, because people who might not be loosely religiously understanding what the Bible and the context of what's being put out here, this criminalizes a lot of the portions of the New Testament, specifically. using the symbols and images associated with classic anti-Semitism, such as claims of Jews killing Jesus or blood libel, to characterize Israel or Israelis. What's insane is the Jews did kill Jesus. It's mentioned multiple times. There's multiple. It's not just in one book. It's got multiple, mentions and allegories throughout the Bible. Thessalonians being one of the most specific. And the story is very simple. Pontius Pilate does not want the blood of this man on his hands. So he chooses, he puts it back to the Jewish leaders who brought him to him and says, I'll allow you to release one of these people, between, Barabbas or Jesus. And they demand Barabbas. They said, give us Barabbas. And therefore sentencing Jesus to crucifixion. And so a lot of people use the argument that people are like, well, the Romans did it, and it's like the Roman soldiers were the ones who did the process of the crucifixion, my gosh. But it was not them who brought them to Pontius Pilate. It was not them who wished for it. Now there are portions of which the Roman soldiers mock him. That is true. Right. They it's not like the Romans are holding him in some view and they're like, we wish we weren't doing this. I mean, they even stabbed him with a spear in his side. They mock him. They put a crown of thorns on him. But again, it's also the same argument as like a gun, right? You wouldn't blame the gun for killing said individual. You would blame who pulled the trigger. And in this case, it would have been the Jews who pulled the trigger. They were the ones who brought this forward. More specifically, because they did not have the power, or would it be that they did not have the acknowledgement to carry out such things themselves, which is why they brought them to the Roman elite or the Roman law enforcement at that time. And so it continues. Anti-Semitism, and see, this is examples adopted by the bill, and so there's so many of these. Anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals, and or their property, toward Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. Contemporary examples of anti-Semitism, public life, yada, yada, yada. And again, it gives plenty of those, right? And so they even attach, this is the attached one of, the same one we just looked at, although these screenshots are from Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was one of the few people who voted against it. And so it's poor. You can't really see this. Let me actually I'll make this a bit smaller so I can read it better. And these are the verses here. And so I'll just read these. In Acts 4:10, be it known to you all and to all the people of Israel that by the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, whom you crucified, whom God raised from the dead, by him this man is standing before you well. In 1 Thessalonians 2:14-16, for you, brethren, became imitators of the churches of God in Christ Jesus, which are in Judea. For you suffered the same thing from your own countrymen as they did from the Jews, who killed both the Lord Jesus and the prophets, and drove us out, and displeased God, and oppose all men by hindering us from speaking to the Gentiles that they may be saved, so as always to fill up the measure of their sins. And then back to Acts 3, verses 14-15. You denied the holy and righteous one, and asked for a murderer to be granted to you, and killed the author of life, whom God raised from the dead. To this we are witnesses. This would be illegal if this passes the Senate. And by what means? I believe they said it's like $5,000, or it's like $5,000 to $10,000 monetary fines, and then imprisonable offense up to 5 years. All of which is quite literally insane. Exceptionally insane. Like, don't get me wrong. That's on levels I never thought possible, but here we are. And it's again, it's opening me up to the whole JQ aspect, where I'm really beginning to dive into this, because it seems to me there's a lot more credibility to the argument than I once believed. So that is the Anti-Semitism Bill. And again, all of this is loosely linked, because you got to think, this bill comes out, Nick Fuentes is allowed back on Twitter. For what reason? I'm under the assumption that Elon Musk saw the writing on the wall and was like, dude, I have to. He was like, he's like, I have to open the door to this person who I know will cost me a bunch of money, because advertisers are going to pull out like crazy. But it was a principled stance. It was a principled step. And I applaud Elon for doing it. I think it's we must. It has to be this way. And yes, Christ is king. Amen. And I'm glad that he did it. And I think the timing is very peculiar. And I don't think it's peculiar. I think it honestly, like every single thing that's happened here recently adds to the argument, which is Jews have way too much influence. Israel has way too much influence. Why do they have so much influence? Why are people so turned away by it? Why do so many vanguard, mainstream right-wing publications deem that they are our greatest ally? Why is there such a disconnection between the theology between Judaism and Christianity? What is Judeo-Christian? Besides a term that became popularized in 1940, to me, it's a subversion tactic. Like, I'm sitting here wondering, like, why these things weren't very well explained to me when I was a bit younger, and they talk about this as like this stuff's happening all the time, dude. Like, bro, when I was growing up, I at least actually saw and heard people who were like, that black person this, or like, that Mexican that. With this, is like, I've never heard, besides in South Park, somebody attacking a Jew. Like, they just like, it's just not relevant. It's not nearly a 1% even issue. So why are we talking about it? And then all of this happens all together. It's like, well, bro, like, if you're asking me to operate by Occam's razor tells me that Israel's got to go. Like, I'm not making all these ridiculous assumptions that are when I just look at it on its face and I'm like, bro, it looks like Israel is wagging the United States. Has to be. It really is the only explanation I can understand. Especially when you do have people who are like, House Speaker Mike Johnson making these house calls to the universities for Israel when it's just a big old charade. It's a big game to these people. It's a clown show. It's a circus. And so expect me to be following more closely with people who are along the lines of Nick Fuentes and the Vincent James of the world, because I want to understand what is going on. And I don't understand particularly why the Daily Wire took the stance that it did. And we'll jump to that. Let's honestly jump to that story right now. The Daily Wire has gone radio silent over that initial story, which was there was a supposed gag order that was sought and reportedly obtained by against Candace Owens by the Daily Wire per Glenn Greenwald. Let me pull this up here. I have the article here. Again, not a word from Ben, not a word from Jeremy Boring. I haven't seen Matt Walsh say anything about it. I haven't seen Andrew Klavan say anything about it. I haven't seen Michael Knowles say anything about it. So this is the article. It's from Glenn Greenwald. As a Daily Wire publicly negotiated a debate with Candace Owens, it secretly sought and obtained a gag order against her. Due to a prior restraint order against Owens, the much-anticipated Israel debate with Ben Shapiro appears to be off. And so they say in here, on April 5th, she publicly invited Ben to have the debate. They went back and forth on each other on X. And then it says, after Owens objected to the format and timing, she and Boring exchanged several tweets in which they appeared to be negotiating, and then agreeing to the terms and format for the debate. Let me zoom this in so you guys can see a bit better. That's way better. In which they appeared to be negotiating and then agreeing to the terms and format for the debate. Owens had suggested the debate be moderated by Joe Rogan or Lex Friedman. Shapiro said, I can't believe how he misspelled so many times. Shapiro said he wanted no moderator. They ultimately agreed to the terms, and Boring offering a series of conditions, including no moderator, and Owens publicly accepting. And it doesn't happen. We're still here. It hasn't happened. The quartering has gotten a hold of him a couple of times. Still hasn't happened. Everybody, I even had my post notifications turned on from like everybody in the Daily Wire in case something along those lines did occur. Didn't happen. And so it makes you wonder, is this true? Has to be. So I waited. There's literally no response. I haven't seen anybody. So I want to get to the quotes here, because he does have a quote here from Jeremy Boring. Here we go. Let's explain it a bit more. Okay. After the prior restraint hearing sought by the Daily Wire and Shapiro, the arbitrator sided with them and against Candace Owens. The arbitrator agreed with the Daily Wire that Owens' call to debate Shapiro and her follow-up negotiations of the debate constituted disparagement of the company and Shapiro. So by her calling to debate Shapiro, she disparaged the company. That's what they're going with. Arbitrator seems blatantly biased, if you ask me. I think that would be fair game, right? This is a company that operates in free speech. This is a company that says our hosts don't share all the same views. Our hosts are free to think. We have free thinkers. But don't you dare say anything or debate one of our other co-hosts. Like, what is this, dude? These are your free speech vanguards? This is who you're paying monthly subscriptions to every month to sit here and scream at you and tell you Christ is King is anti-Semitic? Like, nah, dude. Daily Wire is dead to me. What's funny was Alex Jones was in this Nick Fuentes debate with Mario Nafal, Destiny, and I wish I could clip it. I couldn't find the timestamp on it. It was very quick. Even Alex Jones says, "Oh, the Daily Wire is garbage. Oh, come on, the Daily Wire is garbage. We don't want to talk about that." It was funny. He just let it slip really quickly because somebody was like, "Well, what about this and this from the Daily Wire?" And he's like, "Oh, they're garbage. They are garbage. Infowars only for me, to be honest with you. That includes like the Jay Dyers of the world, Harrison Smith, Owen. Oh my gosh, Owen. I can't remember his last name. He's the guy who got busted for the January 6th thing when he never even went. And Alex Jones, obviously. That's where I'm going to be putting my faith into the news. And so there is a quote here from Boring, which I can find it. Yes, here it is. So when Candace was asked for comment to be included on the story, Owens replied, "I wish I could comment on this, but I can't." She added, "Can neither confirm nor deny." So to me, that speaks towards she's probably been gagged if she's choosing the no comment route. To which Jeremy Boring gave comment to Glenn Greenwald saying, "Your story is inaccurate to the point of being false." Though he did not specify single inaccuracy, nor did he deny that the Daily Wire had sought and obtained a gag order on Owens at the same time. So you tell me, I'm of the belief I've only seen this literally one single report. Glenn Greenwald is inherently biased against the Daily Wire. He is a very anti-Israel person as well too, so he does have his own biases. But if you're asking me, that just seems super sus, super shady. Like I wouldn't agree with it. I really do. I do feel bad for the Daily Wire's host in terms of the Michael Knowles and the Matt Walshes, although Michael Knowles less so. I think Michael Knowles is actually a homosexual, just closeted. I struggle with him sometimes. He's pretty funny, a lot. But when it comes to like real issues, it seems like their hosts are really good at paying lip service to ideals that they choose not to back up. I can't, especially all of the silence that's here and the reporting that's being done by people like Anomaly as well. Until I see some hard proof that this was not the case, I would avoid the Daily Wire. I would avoid the Daily Wire host, especially if you are somebody who is very devout in your Christian beliefs. They will do everything they can to demean them and subvert them. This is even especially more well known when you view it from the frame of the ongoing like red pill versus feminism argument. They don't care at all about the issues like what Jeff Younger is dealing with, as well as just how badly family courts are ran. To me, it seems like they're kind of just trying to usher in as many men as they can to very rapid and quick deaths when it comes to when it comes to being marriage and the family court issues. Their refusal to make it a top priority speaks volumes to me. I don't really understand how you can want or expect, say they say, they're one of their best tools that an individual can use to help fight back in this culture war is to get married and have a lot of kids. Well, I mean, tell you what, the marriage is owned by the state and the state is inherently left. The state leans towards the woman. The state actually does everything it can to bend over backwards for the woman when it comes to these custody issues. And in told, you have women initiating well over 80% of the divorces. You have single father home dynamics representing almost entirely the exact same as two parent households, and yet everything is being done to orchestrate pulling children out of the father's reach, out of the father's, and just separating the home. But they don't care about that. They just tell you like you're an incel or an idiot and they don't have a fix for it. It's something even I've been quoted by Matt Walsh against, because I was just like, dude, like you're a joke, man. You can't sit here and shove somebody towards something because it's inherently good in an idea of it. Yeah, like on paper, it's great, bro. But like, look, you have to look at the way the courts are being held, especially in Texas, when you have treasury incentives to assign child support. Like the state makes money when they assign child support. Why that's not talked about, I don't understand. I don't know. Why should a judge be incentivized to assign child support? Because it's not just the state. When you look into the treasury dynamics of when a state assigns child support, and especially Texas, because is the example I know very well because of the Jeff Younger case, it doesn't even go into like a universal coffer. It goes into some kind of coffer that's meant for like retirement and convenient stuff and like 401ks and pension funds for the judges themselves. And you're telling me like that's not corrupt? Like that's not corrupt? That's not something that we should immediately turn our ire towards? I mean, and to think too, like they want to fight the trans issue, bro. Well, man, I can think of one way you can really fight this trans issue is put fathers back in the home, get rid of no-fault divorce, stop allowing these insane single mothers to run wild with whatever choices they wish, just in the name of like boss girl, while she's sitting there cutting pieces of her own child off. And you just want to sit there and clap because, yeah, go woman, at least it ain't the 50s. I don't understand. And the Daily Wire refuses to address these issues. It's why you have somebody who like Pearl, who nonstop beats the horn and beats the drum against these guys, because it is like, dude, they're at the point where their takes aren't, I can't believe you're that stupid anymore. I have to believe that you are being malicious now. No, you cannot be this ignorant. You just cannot be. And to me, it's like someone's telling me to not believe my own eyes. And I hate that kind of garbage. I really do. It's actually part of the reasons why I'm a bit more vocal about the black issues. It's because I'm tired of people telling me that it's not always black people. Then again, it's not always or 100% or absolute. But when I've seen 10 straight videos from 10 different states of looting, murder, assault, and rape, and every single one, the perpetrator is of a specific skin color, what do you want me to tell you? I can't sit here and tell you that, wow, it must just be like, I'm sorry. Like, I can't do it anymore, man. I can't do it anymore. I see it when I go outside. I see it when I go to the gym. I see it when I go to the gas station. I see it when I go to Walmart. I see it online. I see it in this guy's YouTube videos. I see it in Lefty YouTube videos. But I'm supposed to hold this opinion that like, it's not happening. Well, man, dude, it's really kind of insane that you sit here and care about crime, but you don't really care about who's committing the crime. It's so bogus, dude. It's like, again, it's virtue signaling all around, man. A lot of people are very, very accustomed to the virtue signaling that happens on the left, but they cannot recognize it when it happens on the right. And it's sad because these institutions have been infiltrated, right? Like, it's the uniparty, man. Daily Wire's a uniparty. I would argue maybe Matt Walsh isn't, but it still heralds a lot of uniparty kind of things, especially when they refuse to attack the actual root of issues and they always just want to gloat over symptoms. That's very, very easy. Like my wife does it to me all the time. She's like, you want to watch this video? I'm like, no, dude. I don't want to watch another 17 and a half minutes of Ben Shapiro debating a retarded trans person who's probably autistic and is standing in the audience like this, who can barely hold the microphone. Well, you said something about black people, Ben? And he's like, well, let me, and it's like, dude, come on, bro. Like I could debate a retard. That's nothing. That's not hard. And when people will be like, oh, you're being vulgar. But like, come on, dude. These people have, super insanely curly hair. They're barely breathing properly. I can't do it, man. I can't. I'm not gonna ignore real things that happen anymore. Especially when it is clear that Ben refuses to debate anybody who would be seen as on his level. And it's just a bunch of, you're not attacking anything. You're not attacking anything at the root issue. Like, wow, you made a great video that you can make money off on YouTube, but did you really change anybody's minds? Or was it just like a pop off, you go sis kind of moment in politics? Like, come on, dude. I don't want that anymore. I want real change. I want real, like, actual attack the core issues instead of always complaining about the symptoms. It does nothing. It doesn't move the needle. And I don't find it valuable anymore. And to connect this is another thing that Nick Fuentes put out here recently, which is that the TPUSA has been operating a secret website for at least 2 weeks, distancing itself from Candace Owens. It also affirms Charlie Kirk's allegiance to Israel and the Jewish people. This is North Korea level stuff, totally bizarre and dystopian. America first. So what it says in here is, of course, it's covered with the Star David. It's from israel.tpusa.com. It says, below we provide a list of articles and videos so that you can fully understand Charlie and Turning Point USA's unapologetic support of Israel and the Jewish people. Charlie is one of the most vocal supporters of Israel in this country. I hope these videos and links help clear up any questions you may have. As a reminder, Charlie is not Candace, and Candace is not a TPUSA employee. If you have specific questions about Candace's comments or views, we suggest you contact her directly. However, these videos and links should provide clarity on Charlie's positions and views. Now, if you also remember, maybe you don't, let me look this up. Isaac Shore has also been apparently hired. This is from Andrew Tate, of all people. Isaac Shore is a journalist that apparently is behind the scenes being instructed to attack Ben's enemies for him. He goes after Tate, Candace, Tucker Carlson, and Charlie Kirk on Ben's behalf while simultaneously writing puff pieces about Ben Shapiro so the little guy can keep his hands clean. I'm sure, so again, Isaac Shore, they're sucking each other off. And so again, it looks like there is, a plethora of articles by this one individual clearly defending and being biased in one degree. Now, whether he's actually being, paid off or being instructed or there's any connection to Ben, maybe not. Maybe he just, he took the cue and he was like, I'm going to defend Israel to the death because he's Israel first. Very, very similar, right? But again, noticing any of this or telling you any of this would get me called having Israel derangement syndrome just by literally talking about it. But to me, all of this is extremely alarming. And, I find it odd that you have Alex Jones, Andrew Tate, and Nick Fuentes making a super team of people who have been banned off the internet, who all kind of are approaching the same thing for the same angle, which is there is a white genocide happening. America is over. The social contract has been destroyed. People are refusing to acknowledge that there is some level of authority above them. Everything, it's all, a lot of threads are being tangled. We're at the end where that shirt has been getting pulled on, and now that thread, we're watching as that thread's about to just be the final one, and then there's nothing there. There's no government, there's no country, there's no nation, there's no sovereignty. And I'm sorry, and it's crazy because you even Alex Jones even gets attacked by these people who are on the space by not being anti-Israel enough. Now, I've not been in this long enough, nearly as any of those people mentioned before, to give you a more ardent opinion than one that's been put out by themselves. So I'm going to rather easily just echo their sentiments until I can be proved otherwise. When I see Destiny, the Krasenstein brothers, Mario Nafal and a few other people all team up and they're supporting something, I'm like, well, these are people who are known to be bad faith and disingenuous. And they're up against Andrew Tate, Alex Jones, and Nick Fuentes. I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. I'm like, I know what side I'm going to start on. And maybe if they see some crazy things, I'll move over. But then again, that speaks to how tribalistic things have become. And it's not even tribalistic. It's literally a team game now. It is, I'm on this guy's side and I'm against this person. A lot of the nuance being, kind of eliminated out of the objectivity of how stories even happen, right? A lot of the times when a news story occurs, there's so much that's left behind, especially when it is at a traffic stop, this guy gets shot, but they leave out the part that he had been speeding the last 20 minutes before then, and he actually jumped out of the car, and little details like that. And that's not just narrative framing. That's also to know that headlines are really the news story. The news story really barely gets read. In fact, it's a battle of headlines in which headline can run around the world faster. And I say this to kind of bring it back to the fact of I'm going to sit here until proven otherwise I want to see the influence from Israel just eliminated entirely. I want to see AIPAC be registered as a foreign group, as a foreign entity, as they should be, as what JFK was attempting to do before he got assassinated. I want to understand why, as a Christian nation, we are partnering with a nation of Judaism and calling them our greatest allies when we are antithetical to each other. I want to understand why Christians and the Christians of this world and their beliefs, their religions, our values are always being made second to whatever current thing may be. And I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. Maybe they were like, they don't like the blacks enough. Go with Jews. Sorry, dude. It's over, bro. White Christians, bro. White Christians. Put that number one, dude, and you'll probably start having a lot less problems, man. And until that happens, I don't know what you expect, dude. I can only imagine, expect things to get more violent. Expect things to get more insane. Because people are not going to sit here and take it anymore. And now that we're at this point, you have to internalize the aspect, man, that there's a very real possibility that if you truly wish to not live like the tax slave that you currently are, you're going to probably have to do some things that are going to have some inherent risk to them. I don't know what else really to tell you, man. Whether that's losing your job for saying something, whether that's losing your home because you just don't want to live in the area you're in because of whatever's happening originally. Like, there's going to be risk in it, man. And you got to understand, like, the people who are listening to this, even me included, we are very soft. We're very weak, even compared to the people who are like 50, who were born in the generations 50 years ago. We are weak. We are very soft. The founding fathers would have not put up with any of this, dude. They would have already been in the Boston Harbor a long time ago. So when I think of things like this, it really gets me going, because it's like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I hate it. Like, I will, I spend a lot of my time, I essentially do a lot of hours unpaid, because I read the news and I do my best to understand or get a grasp of what is occurring and why it's happening to me and why I'm being made to live in such a horrible environment, why I'm being made to be subservient to all these ridiculous things. And it's for Israel. I don't even know. I don't care what the reason is, man. It's got to stop. I just don't want to be, I don't want to take this to a reparationist standpoint. I don't want reparations or anything. But man, if we can't get to a position where we are deferential to white Christians instead of literally any other minority group that exists in this country, I don't really see anything changing. You can't raise a generation of a bunch of, white boys and day in and day out, hit them with symbology nonstop of interracial relationships, interracial this, interracial that, constantly like joke one-sidedly about how like they're sexually can't compete in more ways than one, constantly put out all this, whether it's organic or whether it's artificial astroturfing of a bunch of things that are like, oh yeah, like all this minority this, like, oh yeah, a girl wants this, a girl wants this, like, oh yeah. And then expect them to just like drop out entirely. They don't want it. They're not like, they're done. They don't see any value in it, dude. And until that gets solved, like nothing's going to happen. I mean, it's very, very basic. This is at the atom level, man. One of the most very basic, like what would be hard to fix? Like what would be hard to fix would be like, would be repairing the broken sentiment of the lost Christian culture. Like that's going to be hard. It's going to take a lot of time to do. What wouldn't be hard would be just literally getting rid of no fault divorce. Like being across the board, like, yeah, you can't do that anymore, guys. Hey, you're married? It means you're actually married now. Like, can't do this pseudo, like, it's, like luxury dating is essentially what marriage is. Very simple things that we could do to change. Nothing's being done about it. Especially when you think if you're going to solve issues, you're going to want to solve them from the grassroots level, right? You want to fix things from the ground up. But again, it seems like all people want to do is fix things from the top down. I don't understand how you're not gonna fix no fault divorce though by just getting people on the ground to be like, well, yeah, we just shouldn't. No. That should have never been a thing. That you need to use power to eliminate the left power, right? That's one of those examples where like the right's going to have to gain power so that they can eliminate these things. That's where the good use of power comes from. That's where the top down is going to have to come from. The culturally aspect. So, the culture, the constant motivational and inspirational pieces will be what bolsters from the ground, being aided by the large political levers, which can then outlaw things entirely to go alongside the cultural reinforcement. Things such as pornography, right? Like that's going to be one that's going to have to be dealt with at the top level. Like, why are these things allowed? Why is random websites on the internet allowed to post pornography and then not have an age identifier? That's insane. Like you can be mad about child pornography all that you want, but until you're equally as mad about the fact that a 7-year-old can go online and see pornography, well, then I don't know what to tell you, because you're only mad about it from the left-wing angle. You're only mad about it from one angle. You're not mad about all of the degeneracy. You're only mad about one portion of the degeneracy. And it's things like that. And this goes to show, again, like how far away we are from fixing things. And what I get from the Daily Wire is, hey, did you see that trans person I made fun of? Because it's like, bro, it's been years of this, dude. And there's still a bunch of trans people. I don't think any amount of Ben talking fast is going to make trans people stop getting their dicks chopped off. I think it's going to take some real honest effort to like actually getting back into the mainstream and humiliating these people and being like, dude, no, in public, when I see a dude like that, it's like, no, laugh at this dude. Point this out and be like, no. Well, who is this sex offender over here, man? Get this guy away from kids. Drag queen? Drag what? You can drag yourself out of this building, dude, because what the heck? I cannot stand the fact that people like Michael Knowles is like, well, drag is it? No, Michael. No. Drag is disgusting. Drag is degenerate. Drag is evil. Drag is literally, dude, in the Bible, it literally says a man shall not adorn a woman's clothing. But it's what drag is. The fact that Michael would even sit there and halfway entertain why he would defend drag is just like, dude, and I'm supposed to believe that these people are the leading Christian figures in this movement? Like, come on, dude. Come on. I'm not that dumb. Like, I'm not retarded. Like, and let me speak this out too. Redeem Zoomer pointed this out to me a while ago, or not Redeem Zoomer, Valley Zoomer. Michael Knowles has scenes from a movie that he did gay sex scenes back in the day. I might have already said that, but I'm just like, bro, what? What? Why is it seemingly so that all of these popular people in these movements just have these insanely cringy, like, backstories? Just like, what? How are you're doing what? I digress, man. Let's get into a bit more of the topical news, though. That was the main subject I want to talk about, which was the Israel issue. Another one here is the monkey noise boy. He got doxxed. And it's already been put into the public sphere. You'll see this tweet here. And I'm gonna move myself again. This tweet here identified and doxed this kid who was making the monkey noises at the protest, right? And that's actually honestly a great screenshot. And more power to him. But he gets doxxed again because, you can't have your racist 9/11s. He's getting doxxed because this is the worst thing that's ever happened in the history of happening. And again, I bring this point back to say, like, how much anti-white stuff is happening. How many videos do you have to watch of a DoorDash driver getting pulled out in a bad neighborhood and getting the absolute life beaten out of him by a group of blacks, and the media says absolutely nothing, but a college-aged kid makes monkey noises, and this is what's getting plastered all over media, and you want me to care about this? Dude, bravo to the kid, man. More of it, honestly. More of it. Fight back, dude. I don't care anymore. Racist. Oh, he's racist. Dude, shut up. I don't care, bro. Why is that black woman 800 pounds? You don't come at me with this. Oh, this is racist stuff. Dude, that woman was struggling to breathe just from being there. It gets me so uncomfortable, dude. But again, let's move it to this, man. Protect this man at all costs from Elijah. There's multiple angles coming out, man. But his take on it's really, really good. Imagine being upset over this and not everything the fat girls community has done to destroy American cities with violent crime, trash, and theft. This is their game. Deflect. Nah, if a young man wants to be funny at some point, a dumb fat protester, she deserved to be mocked. Total loser. He goes on to say, I don't care which country he was defending or not in this case. I care about multiple issues, and one of them is making sure we keep certain communities accountable for destroying our cities and walking around being entitled while being a net negative collectivity as a tax burden. Fire, dude. Absolute fire. And that's my point. Like, you think this can keep up, dude? You think you can keep this dynamic of black people literally killing whites at an insane rate, committing 60% of all the violent crime that happens, despite being 13% of the population? And then when one white person says one off-color thing, dude, they're getting doxxed, their family gets threatened, they're being plastered with it. You think this dynamic can continue? You must think I'm retarded. I mean, it can continue so long as until civil war. It'll run right into conflict. That's what'll happen, dude. And the only way out of this, if you're asking me, dude, is we're gonna need some serious, like, some strong members of the black community to stand up and be accountable for this trash. I'm serious, dude. I don't think it gets solved any other way. I think it literally has to be. And maybe there's a white man who can cross that boundary, but it ain't gonna be me. There's going to have to be somebody who's accountable, man. And, you know, and I even pushed back on Donnie on this a little bit, but Donnie had said a while ago in one of our previous episodes about how, you know, it's going to need to be someone from their own community talking to their community. But then I think, and I'm like, well, who do you think MLK primarily spoke to? Sure, he spoke to blacks, right? But his message was clearly heard by whites. He's looked at and deemed as one of, like, the most impressive historical figures. Now, albeit there's a lot of personal stuff about his life that's come out since that don't make him look like he had the best character, but he clearly spoke to whites. But now in this time period, we just have to wait. We just have to sit here and take it and accept it until blacks correct themselves. I don't think it's going to happen. What incentive do they have to correct themselves when every institution at the drop of a hat will bend to the will, give them thousands of dollars for this? It can't continue. It's not going. It won't continue. It's impossible to continue. And even saying these things, you know, puts my channel at risk, and people will go, "Oh my gosh, this guy's just racist. This guy's just like." I tell you what, dude. You keep letting the black community be entitled and despicable as they are, dude. I'll have no other option but to be. Now listen. I have literally no problem at all with people having a preferential bias towards their own race. In fact, that's natural. It's common. Anything outside of that realm is dystopian and unnatural. Now, should it be that what you strive towards? No, you should strive towards treating every neighbor as you would yourself, loving your neighbor as you would yourself. You should strive for the Christian ideals. But Christianity does not ignore reality. Christianity exists in reality. Christianity is reality. I would encourage anyone listening to the stream to look at what the Bible says about racism and if it can be defined as a sin. And I think that you should spend some thought there, nor should you do any amount of thinking that the Bible is arguing in favor of allowing you to be racist. I'm just saying, I think the framing of whether being racist is bad or good is not the correct framing at all. In fact, I think instead of viewing it as a thing that should be or should not be, should be viewed as it is, so what next? I just think the framing is entirely wrong. I think this goes back to the whole communist Marxist crap, which is their whole thing is to unravel everything at its atom layer. And so you would imagine that comes to not only just the family, that only just comes to private property, but that also stretches and extends to perceptions, that stretches to literature, that it stretches to education, that stretches everything, dude. It is all entirely in the name of dismantling it, inverting it into some broken order so that it destroys itself. That's what we're looking at right now. And even more simply put, you know, this goes back to a very basic, you know, Christian argument. A lot of families operate where it's like, you know, it's wife, God, kids, husband. And it's like, that's not how it should be. That's not how it works. This is like this what do they call that? This is the servant husband, where he is on the bottom of the totem pole. And that's not how it is, man. The Bible is very, very clear of how it is. And one thing that people, have difficulty understanding too is even the kids portion, but it should be God, fathers, mothers, children. But that, if you're asking me, is literally the most rare combination that exists in the make of American families nowadays. In fact, it's literally anything but that. It's any other order but that. And generally it has the man at the bottom or the third rung. He's not ever in the top two. A lot of the times God's in the bottom. God's not even exist in a lot of people's hierarchies of organization. And to me too, it's kind of odd that nobody really kind of thinks about this. But again, I kind of think of it too of this is the egalitarian progressivism that's leaked into everything that may not be inherently political. But when you grow up in school and you go to your your leftist public school and you're in it every day, every 9 hours of your life, 5 days of the week, and they're like, everyone's equal, you have no, and they don't preach things or talk about things from a biblical perspective. It's all secular. It all comes from the name and basis of science, which Lord knows what agendas that exist there. We know which ones exist there, but it's clearly being utilized by communist Marxists at this point, and very far out leftist progressives, if you want to be more particular. It's like nobody thinks about it. Everybody just is like given this assumption, this base level assumption that we're all equal. And that exists in the churches now. Even in the churches, it's been subverted so badly, there's no nuance there. You mean, I can talk all day and night about female pastors, but it's more about the makeup and the infrastructure that people have been told that these things don't matter, when in fact they do, right? I mean, a lot, maybe even more so often of like being told like, a husband being like, come on, man, like, things are different now, man. Like women are just as capable as men. And the guy's like, yeah, I know, I should let her lead all the time. It's just like, these things matter, dude. Women shouldn't lead at all, literally ever. There are women that have leadership capabilities. I'm not saying women can't possess qualities of leadership, but if you're given a choice, why would you choose the lesser? It doesn't make any sense to me. And again, it goes back to people acting as if these things don't matter when they clearly inherently do. The structure of your life matters, right? Like, just because, if you wake up, right, and you have all 3 of your meals in the first 2 hours of waking up, but at the end of the day, you're like, well, I had all 3 of my meals today. They were just all back to back to back to back to back as soon as I woke up this morning. People would be like, dude, that probably had an effect on your day, dude. You must have felt awful. But then somehow the structuring and infrastructure of everyone else's, the hierarchies, it doesn't matter in any other region. Or it's just like, it's okay to ignore these things, or we're all just like these androgynous gray squares that are all equal to each other. It's fake. It's bogus. We know that's not true, dude. People are equal in value to God. They're not equal in value here on this earth. Like, are you kidding me, dude? Just watch one race, watch one NFL game, watch one basketball game. I implore you, like, we're not equal. It's the stupidest equal in value to God. We are not equal in quality. We're not equal in skill. We're not equal in intellect. None of that, dude. Every person's different. Especially when, and then ignoring it on the aspects of like large disparities between the sexes. And just, again, going back to, don't believe your eyes, don't believe reality, just simply believe what's on this piece of paper, despite literally everything else screaming otherwise. And so I think I had the actual, yeah, there we go. There we go. This is the video itself. It's been memed out quite a bit. But you see, I gotta move the chat because it's right here. It's like right at the very beginning of this video. He comes in from the right hand side. Okay, and it's clearly at this big lady over here. I'll move myself. He's gonna show it to her again. This shit. So it's distinctly like, it looks like there's predominantly one color of skin over here protesting for Israel. Okay, didn't show her again. This is the beginning. I'll turn the sound off. That's who he's making monkey noises at. Elijah Schaefer had a great point where he was like, You should have been making monkey noises. You should have been making gorilla noises, dude, because a monkey's way too small. and it's funny because like these are the tools, right? The tools are the mockery, the humiliation, the making fun of these individuals, their appearances, because we don't want this. We want less of this. We want less of entitled fat black women. I'm gonna say I will go out on them. I think the country would be better off if there was less of this. Disagree if you want, man. But I would go out on a limb and say, for one, not like we get rid of black people. I'm saying if they just weren't fat and entitled, the world would be a better place. Why does she think that anything she's doing right there is an ounce worth any bit of her effort doing that? I don't understand. Those guys are having a great time because they're making her upset. I don't understand what she gets out of this. She just gets made fun of. She has to breathe heavy. She's gonna have to go home and shower after 10 minutes of staying in there. And now you're getting doxxed alongside all these people. I mean, sure, she didn't get doxxed. The other kid did, but I mean, your figure and face is out there now, and every pundit across halfway America has made a fat joke about you. I mean, maybe the whole point of this was an epiphany moment for her, and now she's going to go to the gym. She'll be right wing, and she'll stop doing the things that led her to be there in the first place. But this is what the news media wants you to be concerned about, not the fact that there's a epidemic of essentially white genocide occurring, that you're being replaced, that anything that's halfway being pro-white or could be seen as being positively white is being demonized, being told that's evil, being aligned in the sense of like whiteness is just inherently just this evil quality, and then this is like, you made me feel bad about this, dude. Like I laughed hysterically. I actually found a few posts on Twitter that were like, oh my gosh, people should be mad about this racist moment that happened. And I was like, nope, I'll laugh and I'll laugh again, dude. Because what do you expect? I'm approaching this from the angle of like, what do you expect, dude? You have for years, dude, made white men feel humiliated. You've symbolically nonstop inundated them, whether it's been on Hollywood media, on movies, TV shows, whether it's in pictures, posters, constantly taken the woman from their race, the white woman, put a picture of a black dude with it. Or you've taken the symbology with a movie and done that. Or you've taken the symbology of a song and done that. You've done it over and 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 over again. And you want a white dude to give a shit about a fat black woman being laughed at like a monkey. That is the last thing I'm going to give you, is me feeling bad. I'm going to give you some spite first, right? I'm just saying, what did you expect, bro? And for people who say like it's not happening, it's just like I don't even care, dude. Block yourselves. Whoop, see you, goodbye. Like I'm not going to talk to people who play stupid. And if you're not playing stupid, I do feel bad, because you are very stupid if you don't see these things happening. I don't like to approach things from very, very antagonistic angle, but it seems to me that the only things that people are willing to rally behind are when people do get antagonistic, right? And for somebody who is very quick to anger like I am, like I'm going to start being a lot more antagonistic, because I'm very, very, very scathingly tired of this bullshit. And forgive me, I don't mean to cuss. I tried my best to actually not cuss. But again, what did you expect? I seriously implore and ask you, what did you expect when every single commercial, from Geico to Allstate to Disney to Adidas to Buffalo Wild Wings to anything, dude, it's got an image of a debutante, super cucked, emasculated, just disheveled, ugly, simp, thin white man being paired and being made to look stupid, retarded, weak, effeminate for years. And the black man is just this perfect example of being a scholar and all of this. And just like, what did you expect, man? You thought you were going to solve racism doing this? Come on. You were reinventing the wheel on racism with that. Like, come on, man. It's so systemic against white people, it's not funny. So, to move off from that, there was another bit with this too, which there's another angle, which isn't attacking the woman that was there, which I think you should listen to, which is it was a psyop because these frat boys weren't there for the American flag and doing anything pro-America. They were there because they was for their country, first and foremost, Israel. What? And then I'm supposed to think it's not a psyop. Listen to this.
Joining us now, one of those fraternity brothers, UNC student, is Isaac Mala. Isaac, what motivated you to defend the flag?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I'll say, when we talk about motivation for the flag, the primary reason I was on that quad, right, before this ever even began to become an American issue, I was on there because I'm Jewish and I'm Orthodox, and a lot of members that were holding up that flag were. And so we were there really just kind of holding.
Let me stop it right there, too. You remember earlier when Elijah Schaffer pointed out that Mark Zuckerberg was Jewish? So it would make sense that he would protect his platform and he would do things to prevent the sentiments of anti-Semitism from his platform because he's Jewish. So it would make sense that he would feel to protect his own preferential bias, correct? And then literally right here, the dude says, well, because I'm Jewish, that's why I would want to protect Israel. But then Tim Pool acts as if what Elijah said was stupid. And that's why I can't do the disingenuous commentators anymore, man. Like, that's not dumb to think, bro. What does him having being Jewish have to do with anything? What does him being black have to do with anything? And I'll be honest, I'm a race realist, dude. I am a race realist. I actually do join Nick Fuentes on that aspect because it's clear. I mean, the science is there. The science has shown that there are literal genetic differences between the races, dude. One of the easiest things you can point to is the fact that the black population is much more affected by sickle cell disease than the others. But again, you can't say these things because like the God of our land is everyone's equal. That's it. Dude, you say anything else outside of that, dude? See you, dude. I'll see you in Twitter jail. Or more than likely, I'll see you in court where I'm getting sued for the GDP of France like Alex Jones was for the Sandy Hoax garbage. But I'll play the rest of this out.
Holding up our Israeli flags and trying to stop hate, and there's been a lot of anti-Semitism around the country. So we were there first and foremost for our country of Israel.
Again, I don't know, where is this anti-Semitism coming from, dude? I see some stuff on X, but I don't see it like when I'm walking around Columbus. Maybe just seeing a Palestinian flag is anti-Semitism. I don't know. They changed the definition. They're allowed to do whatever to change the definition with the IRA. Maybe that's what it is. I'm not really entirely sure about that, to be honest. So what I will say, though, is unfortunately, this kid was kicked out of his fraternity. The University of Mississippi, he was kicked out of his fraternity today. It was Phi Delta Theta. And you can see that there. They posted that the fraternity was aware of the video regarding the racist action in this video are those. See what they protect, dude? See what they protect tooth and nail? They don't care. They could care less, dude. So some black woman on campus could probably walk up to that dude while he was doing that and like do something really violent to him and it would get praised. I would sit here and watch it on X have like 70,000 likes and 5 million views. And then I would sit and watch the mainstream pretend it never happened. And you want people to feel bad. It's just like, come on, man. I'm not playing dumb. Let's move it off of this story, man. I'm going to burn through a couple quick ones here. This first one here is Chris Cuomo admitting on air to experiencing vaccine injury symptoms while he was hosting a nurse who was also injured. Now, this is about 5 minutes long. I did want to listen to the majority of it, actually, because I think it's very, very important. And because I'm not seeing too much when it comes to the vaccine injuries being talked about nearly as much anymore. It kind of floated up in the news cycle a bit. But with all the war conflict going on, it seems like those who are vaccine injured are kind of going to follow the news cycle. And I hate that, especially when I've seen a lot of videos, that have had, people who are like shaking. They don't know why. And I think that's awful. So without further ado, let's get this played. Sorry, I had to check my phone for a second. Roll the volume up a little bit. Let this play out. Although I'm not sure if Cuomo works here or not. I'm not too familiar. I'd assume so.
New York Times released an article that's getting a lot of play that says that there are thousands of people who say they're still suffering side effects they believe from the vaccine. and that those have been ignored. Now, one of them is nurse practitioner Sean Barkovich. He says he got his first dose in 2020, had side effects. Just standing up sent his heart racing, stinging pain in his eyes, mouth, groin. Those have gotten a little bit better, but he still has what they call tinnitus. That's a ringing in the ears. We know that vaccines can have unintended consequences, AKA side effects, but nobody's really talking about it because they're too afraid of blame and they just want it to go away. But the problem is people like Sean and me and millions of others who still have weird stuff with their blood work and their lives and their feelings, physically, are not going away. Sean Barkovich joins us now. Sean, why do you believe it's the vaccine, and what has happened when you've tried to get clinical analysis of it or answers?
Why do I believe this? It's not a belief, it's a fact. And as soon as I was injured, 15, 20 minutes of my first dose, I had numbness tingling up and down my injected arm that over days spread to my face and my eyes. I went to see a neurologist. He ran some tests. He's like, well, this is all new. We don't know much about it, but the hospital is going to mandate it. You should get a second dose. And everything in my medical mind and in my bones was telling me, no, if you have a reaction after something, don't do it again. But the pressure was immense. And then 3 weeks rolled around. I got a second dose.
Okay, two things to point out there. The first, for one, is he succumbed to the pressure after like a couple of weeks. I know a nurse who, probably has less of a professional background than this dude. I won't name him or personally dox him. And he said, nope, not doing it. Even to his own family member who was trying to push him to do it, he said, no, I'm not going to do it. And I believe we already passed it, but Cuomo said, like others, like I have had too. So Cuomo admitting openly that he has had these issues as well, which I imagine something like that happening to you is probably going to spurn you out of whatever position you may have previously had. Because if you're dealing with something serious that you can't get answers for, you're probably going to be like, okay, I don't care what the news media wants me to say anymore, dude. Like, I need help. But back to the video.
And after that, everything blew up. I went from being a healthy, 100% healthy, fully functioning nurse to in a complete downward spiral of health. I had a myriad of symptoms.
Have you gotten any clarity from doctors or from the drug manufacturer putting out any information about what could happen as a side effect?
No, as a research nurse practitioner and somebody who worked on vaccine research, I thought after I was injured, there would be people to help me. I'm like, I'm in New York City. I will have there will be medical people ready to help me. There must be interest to find out what happened or what went wrong with me. I reached out to my political representatives. I reached out to the NIH, the CDC, the FDA. I got no answers. No one wanted to touch it. I got token responses back or no response. And so I went on a mission to research myself and help others.
What have you found out? And what do you see in your blood work?
So I sent, in the early days when I couldn't get answers here at home in America, I sent my blood over to Germany.
So he had to send his blood over to Germany to get some answers over his blood work because nobody would give him some answers. It sounds actually very similar to a situation that had with the monoclonal antibodies. I think I'm saying that right. Probably not. With my grandfather. So my grandfather, we had to bounce him around multiple hospitals because they weren't allowing, the monoclonal antibodies until we had found a hospital that had them. And it seemed like a very difficult thing because it was clear at that point that these are the things that were helping people, but they were being very, very hesitant to allow them to happen. And so again, with everything that happened in 2020 and then, through to what's happening now, I have very little faith in big pharma. I never did have big faith in pharma. Let me change that too. I have very little faith in like what actually goes on in the hospitals anymore. Especially when you view because everybody talks about the police example, right? Somebody brings up how the police used to, or especially during COVID, all of the good cops kind of left in mass because they're clearly like the good guys aren't going to sit there and be pressured to take a experimental vaccine. Why would they? They have no reason to do it. They're not going to jeopardize their health. They can see through it. They're the good men. So they left. I imagine very, very similar things happened in healthcare. And I would imagine all of the people who would have thought for themselves are probably no longer in healthcare, or if they are, they're probably in their own private practices, or they moved into a branch off of, similar to what happened to my friend who went from being a nurse at a normal hospital to, I believe he's at like a nursing home or care assistance type place. So kind of like not hospital care, but something adjacent to that. I imagine very, very similar things happened to a lot of people in the healthcare industry, which makes me now question and be fearful for when I need, or someone in my life may need something serious done. Do you fully trust the individual to just hand the life of your loved one over to? That's a lot harder thing to do now and accept. And for me, it's very, very important, I think, for most people nowadays to ensure you know as much as you can about the possible affliction you're under, so that you will be very, very well and aware to know when someone's, shaking your leg or just BSing you. And, that was already happening previously, where they'd be like, oh, you need an x-ray for this. You needed this. And, just make you spend a lot more money. I'm thinking even now, like when it comes to like, you could be jeopardizing your health with what they deem should be your, your solution. Right. And I think people got to take things seriously. So back to the video though.
And I had help with connecting with German scientists. They were more interested to help me than people here in my own country. And that testing showed I developed several autoantibodies. Some scientists believe are attributed to this POTS, or positional tachycardia that you mentioned, where every time I stand, my heart zooms. So some of my autoantibodies look similar to people with long COVID, and I never had COVID. And that was proven through immunological studies of my blood. They could not find any viral antibodies.
I think there's really no incentive to get out in front of this. I mean, nobody's going to get patted on the back for saying, yeah, Sean's right. There's side effects on some of the vaccines, or all of the vaccines, that we should be talking about and figuring out how to treat. And there is long COVID, and there's lots. Nobody wants to say that because it's all political now.
Right. And we're caught in the crosshairs of the politics. I thought that all my pro-vaccine colleagues would, that championed me on, would be there to lift me up and help me. And in fact, they're the ones who turned around, dismissed, denied, and tried to censor and bury me. They're afraid that by showing my face, I'll drive vaccine hesitancy. But what they don't realize, and what I have come to realize, is that the censorship and the hiding of it is actually fueling vaccine hesitancy. If the government had just said, hey, these are novel vaccines, we don't, there will be reactions, let's just have a program in place to deal with them, set up a fund to obligate the manufacturers to provide help or research, I think the citizens would have appreciated that. But instead what happened is they just suppressed me, and that also shocked me when I tried to reach out online.
Ooh, what I will say is, I even had notes on this too, the solution falls flat. To think that you went through all of that, and then all you're asking is that these companies should be held liable to pay you out when it does happen. I mean, forgive me, but I believe they're bearing the headline, which is like, you should just have made it optional and not enforced or made mandatory an experimental drug. I don't like. To me, it's like, hey, dude, we forced you and made you inject this thing at the risk of you losing your job and at risk of your family. And his only thing is like, well, dude, they could at least paid for my surgery when I did get injured. It's like, dude, how are you not more mad? I don't understand that. But okay, there's a little bit left of this.
Online, Facebook, Instagram, they would tag my messages as if I'm misinformation.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm just a desperate person that something bad happened to, and I'm reaching out and pleading for help.
Well, let me tell you something, Sean. I can't help you because I'm no clinician. I'm sick myself, but I'm working with people who are working on this. So I'll make sure that we're in touch right after the show, and I'll help any way I can. You may be ahead of me. I'll hook you up with my clinicians, and maybe you can share different protocols and things that may help. But I will never stop reporting on this. And all I'm doing is just beating the drum of, you need to have a 9/11 style commission to figure out what worked and what didn't and what questions need to be.
The biggest thing I will say is huge props to Chris Cuomo for taking such a stance when he has been smeared a bunch through the news, and he is left wing for a lot of different positions. I'm not sure where he's leaning at right now. I'm sure it's much has been changed since then, but to even hear him, someone at that level, even ask the guy he just brought on to be like, hey, we should have our clinicians talk to each other, I think shows a level of which there is a huge gap or lack of medical backing, research, effort entirely in this issue. And so I think, if anything, that would be what drives even more vaccine hesitancy, is not just the censorship, not just it being experimental, but the fact that it's being broadcasted publicly, that those who are injured are like desperately looking around, and it's like, we have nowhere to go. No one's helping us. You might have to go to a different country. Like, and it's just like, dude, that's terrifying. That is insanely terrifying, dude. To think that if you do have something happen, you're going to get ignored. Your GoFundMe's will probably get deleted for misinformation. And you're going to have to literally leave the country and take on insane expenditures to just make sure that you don't have Parkinson's or something for the rest of your life. Now, again, YouTube, I'm not saying that it gives you Parkinson's. I'm just saying it seems to be a lot of these effects that people do get from the vaccines are similar to autoimmune diseases that are very, very, very detrimental to one's function during their daily lives. I mean, some things that you can't ever recover from. And I'm sure you've seen plenty of videos that have, made it into the viral sphere of people who are like, like, I've been like this 15 minutes, ever since the 15 minutes I took my vaccine, and they're just shaking. And I'm like, that sucks, dude. And to think like all of their cries for help are like, your content's been restricted, misinformation, big tech wins again. It's just like, dude, you'd probably be weeping. You'd probably be crying into your pillow every night, wishing that you never did that, probably being exceptionally depressed. My heart goes out to those people. I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, I will pray for those who are suffering in silence, because I don't want to abandon anybody. And I just thought I'd bring that to light, because I'm not seeing very many people talking about the vaccine injured stuff. Again, because it's always easy to talk about the low-hanging fruit and making fun of trans people. And it's like, dude, we should be well beyond making fun of trans people. Like, why don't we get some help for the people who are literally suffering? And let's jump to this next story here, which I'm sure everybody already heard the news of Kristi Noem shooting and killing her dog. But like I'd mentioned at the beginning of the episode, there was a couple portions that are new that I think we should both take a listen to. So the headline here is Kristi Noem doubles down on CBS Face the Nation when she was faced with criticism over killing her dog. Now let's do this first one. This is from Matt Walsh, I believe. I'll go down and pause it. I'm going to get rid of some of these tabs so I'm not burning up my laptop. Okay. Let's see, Matt Walsh even says, I'll read what he said first. He says, I still say the outrage over Noem killing the dog 20 years ago is wildly overblown and ridiculous. I don't think so, to be honest. But on a purely political level, I have never seen any politician torpedo their careers so quickly, efficiently, and most of all, hilariously. Now, this quote that he's quoting says, it just, quoting what the host questions her on. But you have got to listen to her answer. The way that she's kind of squiggling and worming around is so Kamala Harris-like. It's so leftist. It's so Democrat politician style that it's almost unbelievable. And I'll be honest, dude, my issue is not with her killing the dog. My issue comes before that. My issue is why is it when our country is literally on the verge of collapsing? Why is it one of the top concerns whether the vice president is female, dude? It's just dude, come on. We're about, the country's dying, dude. The last thing I care about is getting a woman into the vice presidential office. Why? And it just again, it points to the fact that Trump is just, it's Trump, dude. It's just he wants to win. It kind of shines a light, I guess, on the fact that it's very less, maybe from his perspective, he's going less principled because he has to make sure that he does get into the White House, so I can see that perspective. But to think you have people like Vivek Ramaswamy, why is he not in the short list I keep seeing? Instead, it's JD Vance and random black guy who can barely talk, and then Marco Rubio. Please, of all the people on this planet you have to pick from, dude, I don't Like, just not be a woman, for one. But at least pick somebody who will help bolster you. And two, you are almost just as old as Biden. I do not want to be taking the risk that a year into your presidency, you have to step away and Kristi Noem becomes the president, dude. That is not what people voted for, dude. And it's a far shot from anything they voted for when they were voting against Biden. And it'd be a far shot for anything they would sacrifice a vote for Vivek Ramaswamy for. So it's like, please, dude, can we get our priorities straight? Can we stop trying to placate women and just like, please just fix the country? It's most like an enraging thing, dude. It happens on both sides, dude. Feminism is just like brain rot in this country, dude. I cannot stand it. But again, let's listen to this. Take my face off here too.
But on this point, though, because you have been rumored to be a potential vice presidential candidate, as you know, and former House Speaker Newt Gingrich said killing the dog and then writing about it ended any possibility of her being picked as VP. You talk multiple times about it. In fact, at the end of the book, you say the very first thing you would do if you got to the White House that was different from Joe Biden is you'd make sure Joe Biden's dog was nowhere on the grounds. Commander, say hello to Cricket. Are you doing this to try to look tough? Do you still think that you have a shot at being a VP?
Well, number one, Joe Biden's dog has attacked 24 Secret Service people. So how many people is enough people to be attacked and dangerously hurt before you make a decision on a dog and what to do with it?
Well, he's not living at the White House
That's
anymore.
a question that the president should be held accountable to.
You're saying he should be shot?
That's what the president should be accountable to, is what is the number? And I would say about Republicans criticizing me, these are the same Republicans that criticized me during COVID. They've criticized me when I've made other decisions in South Dakota to protect my state. And my state today is extremely happy and thriving. We're doing well. We've got thousands of people moving to our state because they love the opportunities that are here and the businesses that have come, and how we've gotten to be a state that has one of the lowest unemployment rates in the nation. Everybody has an opportunity for higher wages.
Like, did you mean shoot him? Like, is that what you said? Let me tell you why she should move to South Dakota. So we have an dude, she's killing her career, man. Killing it. I mean, she did take the classic like leftist, well, you know, if you're doing the PR, you have to deflect, deny. She did that classic thing, but it's so bad, man. Like, she could solve this all entirely by simply saying, like, I made a really poor decision. I shouldn't have glorified what I did to my dog that was 17 months old. That was a questionable decision anyways, that lacked all context, that requires everyone, including the reader, to believe me 100%, even on something like that grounds. It's like, dude, like, you don't have the benefit of the doubt. Like, you could just simply apologize for such a bad optic, you know, and apologize that you weren't. You know, I guess like doubling down on killing a puppy is like, it's retarded. And this proves, like, showing you like a woman being defensive over the stupidest thing. It's like, you lost your chance, bro. And I don't even need to vote against a woman. It's like, she'll do it herself, man. You give it, she'll be in an affair in 2 months. And to be fair, I shouldn't even say that. She's already been in an affair. She's already cheated on her husband. And these are the Christian people we put forward. Yeah, dude, get in that office. Woman power, dude, and be exactly the same exact version of Kamala Harris, just white. Why? I can't make sense of it, to be honest with you. But no, this isn't the only one. There was another moment. There was another brutal moment from this same interview. And I'm not even going to read the headline, man. We're just going to need to watch this because I was in disbelief, man. Let's read this real quick. Let's see, hide captions. Okay. This is from Ashley St. Clair, who I do not like, but she says, "This is so brutal, I'm actually wincing." And then Tim Pool even says, "Doubt she wrote a single word." Listen to this, man. This is insane.
Talk about meeting some world leaders, and one specific one. Quote, "I remember when I met with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, I'm sure he underestimated me, having no clue about my experience staring down little tyrants. I've been a children's pastor after all." Did you meet Kim Jong-un?
Well, as soon as this was brought to my attention, I certainly made some changes and looked at this passage. And I've met with many, many world leaders. I've traveled around the world. As soon as it was brought to my attention, we went forward and have made some edits. So I'm glad that this book is being released in a couple of days and that those edits will be.
Like, are you glad this book is being released? This book you wrote is destroying your career. I mean, and the fact that she's not answering again, she clearly lied. But maybe it's true. I mean, maybe Tim's right. Maybe she didn't write a single word. Maybe she just handed it off to an editor and she was like, here, just have, AI expand it more so you have more to write off of. And again, it's written in a way where she's a girl boss, dude. She stared down Kim Jong-un, bro. He wasn't terrified of you, dude. He's honestly probably sexualizing it, to be fair. He's probably like staring at her like, he's like, we don't have women like this over here. No, he didn't care how the way you were looking at him. And to be fair, she never met the guy. At least that's how it's coming off. Let's finish this.
In place, and that people will have the updated version.
So you did not meet with Kim Jong-un. That's what you're saying.
I've met with many, many world leaders. I've traveled around the world. I think I've talked extensively in this book about my time serving in Congress, my time as governor, before governor, some of the travels that I've had. I'm not going to talk about my specific meetings with world leaders. I'm just not going to do that. This anecdote shouldn't have been in the book, and as soon as it was brought to my attention, I made sure that was adjusted. So,
refuses to answer the question. So, using Occam's razor, my assumption would be she never met Kim Jong-un and she wanted to add in her girl power feminist stuff. And I question you, like, is feminism a conservative value? Is this what conservatives want to be putting into the White House? I doubt it. Now, to be fair, maybe the secular good old boys who haven't ever cracked open a Bible or actually do everything in their power to run away from it will be like, oh yeah, man, get her in there, hot white woman, like da-da-da. Like, they don't sell me any. But again, if you're looking at the track record of our current vice president who literally sucked her way up the ladder, I mean, this ain't much different. Maybe this is a proof that, like, hey, she's worthy of that ticket. Maybe that ticket's destined to only have the most despicable people ever be on it. Could be real. A couple more though, but again, not in the same light, but similar, I should say. We jump to this story, which is, it's a mother recognizes her son at one of these protests that happened in Baltimore, and she chased him around for it. It's kind of a white pill, a little bit. I just thought it was great. Turn on the sound.
Recognized her son as one of the protesters throwing rocks at police. She made very sure to voice her disappointment when she found him on the street. You can see her yelling and striking her son. She chased him home, and as he walked away, trying to pull the mask off the face. That's what you would call hands-on parental supervision, as Chip Reed said at the beginning. Mama, don't play. But I was watching the video yesterday. It was very tense watching it. I kept thinking at any moment we're going to see something very, very tragic there. So she took him.
I was just looking at that picture, dude. She's like, whop, get inside, boy. She's like, dude. She's like, you're raising the settlers, She's like, your father don't work this hard, and I don't work this hard to have you getting all in a black getup and come busting around, acting like a no good, you know what I'm saying. The white pill, a little bit, but I mean, a funny moment. I'm sure it's not going to get covered that much, but white pill, it shows that there are some people with their heads screwed on straight who are still care about what their kids do, just because they turned 18, they don't just like turn a blind eye and don't do their activities. More of this, honestly. I mean, I wish, and to be fair, it's a little bit more sad. I don't think many of the protesters who got the crazy blue hair probably do have a parent who feels this strongly or loves them this strongly. And that's something to keep in mind anytime you do. You want to attack a leftist and make them feel subhuman. Understand, like, they probably don't have people that love them. They probably are truly come from backgrounds that are disgusting and terrible and vile. So you got to give people a little bit of grace, right? It can't always be attacking people for the sake of attacking them and mocking them and humiliating them. There is still going to be a portion of which you need to keep your hand outreached, right? Otherwise, like, you aren't being Christ-like. You're not attempting to bridge the gap. Now you understand an enemy is an enemy and his neighbor is a neighbor. Those things have distinctions. So you're not going to treat your enemy as a neighbor and your neighbor as an enemy. You have to be and have the vigilance and the wherewithal to understand which is which and operate accordingly. And then maybe at that point we continue with these cultural changes. Things will get better. And it's very, very, what's the word? It's very inspiring and white pill to see people who are very, very Christian theologians like the Dusty Deavers out of Oklahoma who are making waves. And then you have Douglas Wilson going on Tucker Carlson to talk about what they could do to bolster the Christian nationalist movement in the state and a few other things of that nature too. So I think it's all well and good because I think these things are growing, you know, especially because the Nothing Ever Happens group will always say like, we'll never have a Christian theology. We'll never have a this or that, and I've always been of the mindset too of like, you know, never say never. I think that's retarded, especially when, you know, things have multiple means of happening, you know, whether that's through voting, whether that's through, you know, natural disasters, whether that's through industrial revolution, whether that's through violence. Like there's many, many means of which you can make a political system happen. I think it's retarded to say it would never happen. That operates off the precedence of like people, you know, nothing ever changes. And I think that's retarded. That's a retarded take to have. So moving on though, there was a couple more stories I wanted to get to here that I'm already past the moment. Honestly, let's just do one since I'm already over. I'm past 8 p.m. right now. Let's just do this one because I thought this was just egregious. If I can pull it up here and get rid of this. It's not the worst one I've seen. I will say that. I've seen plenty that are like, it has like, you know, I want to kill this thing inside of me, and they'll like write the most ridiculous, vulgar things on their stomachs. But this is again another clip of somebody who is literally insane and doesn't view what's inside of them as a life. And to me, for a woman to be this far along and still hold the viewpoint that she does is kind of wild. But I guess I'll play this minute out and let you hear it for yourselves.
Okay, well, now tell me about what you have written on your stomach.
Sure. So this is a part of me right now. I'm Jewish, and according to Jewish law and tradition, life begins with the first breath and at birth, and that if anything were to happen up until then, that it is part of me, and it is my decision. It's part of my body. It's like a limb. I mean, it is a significant part of me, but it's my decision.
Okay, so I see you have written here. Can you read it to me?
Yeah, it says not yet a human.
And why did you write that?
Because everyone is talking about murder, and it's it's me. It's not somebody else yet. I have a child. This is a person. This is a person with will. This is a person who has decision-making power, and this is me.
What do you think of today's decision?
It's awful. I mean, it's horrible. I don't know, you know, what parts this baby is going to have, but if he or she does not have the options that they need to make bodily choices around what they can do with their own life, I don't know how to protect them in the world.
To me, what gets me, and I'll be real with this, is just how like the argument is so not based in anything outside of the person themselves. Like it's literally just based in like what they like, what their convenience is, what their belief is. It's just me. What? Now, I will be fair, but you mean when you're looking at her, you're like, man, I would expect to have, you know, or get a lot more reasonable opinion out of a woman like that who would go to the length of writing something like that on her stomach. No, she makes a comparison that the baby, she just says it. It's her, you know, with no basis behind it, simply just because that's how she feels. And because that she's been through it before, and she explains it, and she backs it up with the Jewish argument, which I have not vetted this. I don't know if this is true, but if she's saying it, I'm going to believe it. I'll take her at her word, which is that in Judaism, the baby's not alive until it breathes its first breath. Something I've never heard before, but if that's true, well, then it would make sense then why someone who is practicing Judaism would then be completely fine with abortion if that was what their viewpoint preceded. Although it's the first time I've heard of that. Again, it's one of those things that is loosely correlated to like she's a secular Jew. using Judaism to bolster the foundation of her argument that is inherently anti-Christian. Again, I'm just out here noticing things. I'm not going to sit here and say, conclusively one way or the other that it is, it's the Jews that are doing, it's the blacks that are doing. I don't know. I'm just saying, when I keep seeing the same things over and over again, I'm going to notice them. I have to notice them. And then when I see it being deflected and played against and being rather poorly broadcasted and reported on, particularly with the Anti-Semitism Bill, I'm going to have to take a side. Like, I'm going to have to pick the side that's like, why are we moving away from Christian values? And then it's crazy because everyone will say like, we can't have a Christian theology. We can't have a Christian values. Like, what, you don't believe in the freedom of religion? I don't believe in the freedom of religion. I believe that there has been a handful of very bad court cases that have handed that verdict down to us to where we exist now. But it's a Christian nation, and we will hold and herald any belief and enshrine it in law besides one that is Christian. And then to then act like the Christian nationalists and people like Nick Fuentes, who come out super strong against everything that's going on in the world, and then want to act like they have these most insane radical views, there's no place for it. It's like, bro, are you just playing stupid, or do you just hate Christians that much, or do you hate white people that much that you refuse to push things back to to restore things to where they used to be? There's a couple of different arguments there. Some people think it's more against the people hating white people. Some people think it's more against hating the Christianity aspect. Some people think it's just more pro pushing the satanic cult that exists. Bunch of things going on. All I can really tell you is this: if things keep moving in the directions that they're going, I'm not sure we will even have a country, or there'll be an election to be had, especially when Israel invaded. I believe they invaded Rafah a little bit ago before the stream even started. If World War III does get pushed to a head, if people do fight back hard against the Israel influence, I don't know, man. I guess time will tell. It seems to me that it's hard to keep a grasp on the coattail of what is happening in the world anymore, because it's so much deflection, so much lying, so much artificial. And anytime you want to speak openly and freely, you got to sit there and self-censor or worry about what you said or didn't say. And so it sucks all the way around. So I will leave you with that. There was a few other things I wanted to get to, but just weren't nearly as important. The one was that if you want to look into it, there was an $11 billion California high-speed rail bridge to nowhere. I will issue a correction on that. They originally said it took them 9 years to build. It actually took 3. So to build 0.3 miles took $11 billion. And it's literally a piece of concrete that's sitting alongside a railroad somewhere that literally it's worthless. You should look into it. It's one of the biggest wastes of money I've ever seen in my life. And then the only other one that I did not reach was there is multiple stories of sadistic women, particularly in the lens of teachers, kindergarten teachers, 5th grade teachers, 6th grade teachers, who were caught doing sexually degenerate things with students. And one of the stories being a fiance who was getting ready to get married was caught making out with a 5th grader. Here, I'll just flash this on the screen real quick so you know I'm not lying to you. This is fiance of, let me take my head off again, from the New York Post. Fiance of Madison Bergman. She was busted for making out with the 5th grader, and the guy says the wedding is off. She cheated with a little kid. I've seen a rise in these things. I've seen a bunch of these things coming out with like girl teachers doing things with boys. It's just like, when I think of these things, I swear I see one of these a week now. But it's generally like these decent type of average attractive women, and I'm not judging. I'm just drawing the distinction that it's not like these decrepit weirdos who you would expect them to be, who are like diddling kids. And I just draw the distinction to like, it's like the rat utopia, like the beautiful ones, like this extremely hypersexualized environment with extremely fetishized and hypersexualized actions always taking place. Now, I get that there's the internet now, so we see these things more, but I'm telling you from somebody who's always reading the news that I'm seeing more of these more often. And it just makes me think that, we're reaching the endpoints for what is actually taboo anymore. We've been seeing it pick up quite a bit. You have Alex Rosen, Vitaly, a bunch of other guys literally making whole new channels and shows about beating the crap out of pedophiles they catch in random places all over because there's so many of them now for whatever reason. And to think that now the pedophilia we're witnessing it rise among women is like, how close are we to the end of Rome? Because now we're seeing the opposing dynamic, which should be like the very least voluminous of any of these dynamics, now happening a lot more. And so it just makes me think like we are literally at the very, very, very tail end of the beautiful ones. And so next step beyond that is cannibalism. So we're not on a good track if things follow the Rat Utopia experiment. So that was it for today. That was mainly everything. There was a few other things attached with that I wanted to get into, but again, I'm short on time. I didn't have a co-host as well, so I probably did cover a bit more than I would have normally did. And again, still got the goal of 1,000 followers on X. I hit the 1,000 followers on TikTok. My new goal with TikTok will be to get to 3,000 followers. That'll be my new goal. I'll update you on how close I'm getting to that. Would still like to get to 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube, so please do share the show if you enjoy it. Please hit the like button. That helps the video's algorithms a bunch when you do like the show. It also helps keep it in your feed whenever I do anything. It'll promote my content to you a bit more as well if you do like it. Share it as well if you feel it was good enough to do so. I'm also uploading all the episodes to X, as well as going on Spotify too if you want the audio only version. The video goes on Spotify as well. You always have the option to just turn off the video if you want to save space. And then yeah, that's all the calls to action. My sponsor, I'm gonna have to get a hold of him again. I believe my promo code expired, so promo code RedPill10 does not work currently for the main tweets right now. I'll have to get back a hold of him to get a new code going because he only put me on for a few months to for the discount. Maybe he'll give me a bigger one this next time around. We can only hope. And so with that, again, I appreciate you coming in. God bless. I hope we can save this country. Hopefully this has been more accurate than offensive, because hopefully it's at least a bit offensively accurate. I think I messed that up. Either way, take care. I appreciate you all, and peace out. Have a good night.